Hi everyone, Alexandra Jarrett, Jupiter Returns, here with your weekly astrology forecast. And yeah, it's been a really stormy weekend in every respect. So I thought what we might just do initially is find our bearings essentially as we move into the new week. So what we've had going on this weekend, obviously you'll know how it's shown up in your own life. We've had the Leo full moon, so a fire sign full moon, so quite expressive, quite dramatic. And simultaneously, what we've had going on is Venus shift from Pisces into Aries, which is a stark contrast of different kinds of energies, and her meeting with Chiron, that you may be familiar with as the wounded healer. And all of that going on, again, this is happening in Aries, so another fire sign. So lots of fire, lots of passion, lots of drama, essentially. So I just want to take a moment here at the beginning of this session just to really unpack everything that's been going on and help you really to kind of synthesize what's been showing up. Why? That's the most important question. Why have things shown up the way that they have? What are we being asked to do? And I would ask you to bear in mind with all of the forecasts and everything that you're looking at astrologically this year is to bear in mind the ongoing situation that we have up there in Capricorn. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction, it's a really slow, long-term process. It's not just this one isolated thing that happened on January the 12th and that's done now and on we move. This is like slowly working in the background as everything else sort of sits on top at different layers, like the clockwork analogy that I've used in the past. Big cogs and smaller cogs as we move up, all working with each other. So we're trying to synthesize essentially the whole of the chart to give a fuller picture of how things are shaping up. So just to remind you that archetypes that are at play over there in Capricorn is Saturn, which is power and authority and structure, how the systems and structures of our world are created. And they're usually very long lasting. Saturn likes things to last a long time. And then Pluto is the energy of transformation, usually through a death and rebirth process, so it can provoke crisis. So essentially what we're looking at there in Capricorn, which represents the patriarchy, it represents capitalism, it represents business, all of these kinds of aspects, Saturnian kind of aspects. We're looking at there being a kind of a pulling apart of the current system, how it works. This transformation process that we're going through requires the old to be dismantled so that we can put everything back to create a better system to go forwards with as we approach what's being called the Great Conjunction, which will be when Saturn moves into Aquarius. We're moving into the age of Aquarius slowly. Saturn will move into Aquarius, Jupiter will meet up with Saturn in Aquarius, starting a whole new cycle. That's going to be towards the end of the year. So all of this work that we're doing sort of between Capricorn and into the early stages of Aquarius is a very drawn out process. There'll be flash points, flash moments in time that will be quite profound and noticeable, but it's always just gently simmering away in the background. So just bear that in mind. So for yourself, it's considering, you know, how have I formulated the structure of myself? How does that need to now be looked at, examined, pulled apart and put back in a different way that's going to support me and give me the strength that I need in my life, which is what structure is all about, to move forward in a better, healthier way into the future, which is what Aquarius is very concerned with, the future. So what did we have going on? Well, Venus, we really need to talk about. She's moved through Pisces. She's exalted in Pisces. Pisces facilitates compassion and more feminine qualities, which of course Venus is very comfortable with. Venus rules love. Essentially, she wants relationship. So she connects things. She brings things together. She conducts electricity, essentially. She's ruled by the element copper. And copper wire allows energy to flow from one place to another, to connect them, to light things up, to bring things together. This is how she works. She rules two signs in the chart. She rules the sign of Taurus, which very much relates to our self-esteem, our self-worth, our values. So Venus is very concerned with the things that we value. And that's a really, really important part of the structure of our lives. What is it that the structure says that we value? Okay. The other sign that she rules is Libra, all about relationship. Over here, there's more of an aesthetics kind of expression of Venus. It's about beauty, it's about the arts, it's about culture, these kinds of things. So beauty, relationship, love, femininity, connection, these are the essences that we're dealing with Venus. Now, take Venus and put her into Aries, and this really changes things. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is masculine. Mars wants to make things happen, and he wants to make them happen according to his ego drives, according to what he wants. Okay, and it's quite a primal kind of energy. Now, one way of looking at this is saying, well, you know, Venus isn't particularly comfortable here. She won't give us her best. But I've been giving this some thought because I think that we have to question everything. And Venus in Aries is concerned very much with the identity, okay? Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and therefore it's about me. It's about my appearance. It's about my identity. Who am I? Is the question that Aries asks. So we put Venus in this situation, and of course women go through so many changes in their identity. My cat Benson is making himself known, as you can probably hear, so forgive that. Hopefully he'll stop in a minute. Okay then. So yeah, so Venus in Aries, we have to go through changes in our identity throughout our life, and if we cling on to the old system, the old idea of what our identity is, then we're going to find ourselves in a battle, you know, that Mars situation, because we will change, we will adapt. If our current system tells us that a woman's worth is based on her aesthetic, how beautiful she is, how youthful she is, how few grey hairs and extra pounds that she has, then we're going to have a battle as we move into our older years, because that simply is just going to change, whether we like it or not. And this is a big part of the connection with Chiron here. Chiron being this core wound where we feel that we are not enough. We're not good enough. We will be rejected. We will be abandoned. We must overcompensate for our flaws and make people like us, make people accept us, this kind of thing. It's a very sensitive spot that we all have, and so Venus meeting up with this is looking at these issues in our relationship to our identity. Okay, the connection that Venus is making here is between our sense of woundedness and our sense of insufficiency, just as we are, and how that connects to our identity and who we see ourselves as and what we've come here to do and to be. So we have a system at the moment that perhaps financially exploits this wound with, you know, it would be lovely to think that fashion and beauty and makeup and all of these things was simply put out there for us to express our highest qualities and feel really good. But actually, in order to do that, they tap into the Chiron wound. They say, you know, you're not good enough. It doesn't do to have grey hair. It doesn't do to have wrinkles. It doesn't do to have the extra pounds, whatever it may be too tall, be too short, be too fat, too thin, too white, too dark. All of these things, they are being manipulated. Our wound, our core sense of I'm not good enough is being manipulated in order to make a financial gain. Venus also rules money. So this is what we are being asked, I think, to connect with. Now, one of those changes of identity that I recognize as a woman is through the childbirth. Now, Venus in Aries here is absolutely, if there was something that could express Venus in Aries, it would be a woman in childbirth. There's nothing that's more feminine than creating a new life and giving birth to a baby. That's about as feminine as it gets. And this is where I kind of separate a little bit from the idea of Venus in Aries not being such a great thing. Because my goodness, if you yourself have been a woman in labor or you've witnessed a woman in labor, she needs that Aries. Yeah, she needs that primal Mars warrior energy to get through that birth process. And, you know, a woman in that place is a formidable thing indeed. So the warrior woman is something that I think that we need to embrace more, to connect with in more of a positive light than perhaps it's been portrayed. We can't all just be pretty little things, delicate feminine flowers. You know, I think the time has come when that idea of what it is to be a woman has gone. And think about the changes that the identity of a woman goes through when she moves from being the single, youthful, attractive, sexy woman to being a pregnant woman, then going through this, you know, tremendous experience of birth, and then she moves into the identity of becoming the mother, and all of the changes that she needs to be able to change and adapt to. I was reading something the other day about stretch marks, and these are something that I'm really, really pleased to see that the female approach to is changing, because this very much ties into the Venus with Chiron idea of a sense of it being my body, my identity being less than because it's gone through this experience. So mourning the loss of the fit, toned abdomen of a woman's youth, having gone through child rearing, and now it might be a bit, you know, wobbly and saggy and covered in these kinds of silvery scars. You know, we're starting to actually see in some magazines and online shopping sites and things like that, they're actually using women who have stretch marks and showing those stretch marks and not covering them up, because actually we're embracing them and saying, this is a beautiful thing. We're changing our value system of what beauty is. Beauty isn't just this idea that you have to look this very specific way at this specific age and point in your life, and otherwise you're on the scrap heap and you don't have value anymore. And we're looking at these stretch marks now and going, wow, what were they produced by doing this incredible miracle that my body has performed? Now, I would really welcome a society in which we take the same approach to our physical stretch marks as to our emotional stretch marks. And this is what Chiron taps us into. Stretch marks happen when the body has to carry weight, and then that moves, and the skin, you know, is forced to stretch to accommodate this extra weight. And it's exactly the same with trauma. The weight of a difficult, traumatizing experience, a loss, a betrayal, a rejection, a heartbreak, that's a huge weight to carry. and it stretches our emotional self, our emotional pain body, in exactly the same way as the physical body stretches. And we are left with stretch marks, and they won't go away. So we can either look in the mirror, as it were, the metaphorical mirror, and look at these stretch marks and go, oh, I'm such a broken person. I'm so wounded. I have, all these reminders of where I've been pushed and where I've been stretched and where things have been made difficult. We need to start looking at those in the same way. Wow, look what I did. Look what I came through. Look how I've grown. Look how I have changed as a person. And these are the reminders. So that's just my thoughts essentially on the identity and how we can start to filter that in, that value system of how we look at our painful experiences and our self-worth through a slightly different lens if we're to build this better structure in our lives as we go forward. So I hope that's helpful. I just thought I'd take a little bit of time there because it's been a really, really profound and important experience for many. So today we find, so the moon was full in Leo. Today the moon has now moved into Virgo. So out of that fiery, passionate kind of energy and into more grounded energy. Now, the phase that the moon is in at this point, it's the third quarter of her cycle. So the full moon, when she's here and she's opposite the sun, that's the halfway point, okay? And now she's moving on from that, and we're in the waning phase. So the waning phase is when she's shrinking in the sky. And that helps us to understand, just in itself, the process that we need to go through. The full moon is essentially the one-to-one session that you're having with your boss, okay? Your annual appraisal, as it were, but it happens monthly, your monthly appraisal, okay? And the boss in this instance is the universe. And it's your feedback session, all right? And it's a big, big mirror. The moon is just a giant reflector, and it's reflecting back to you something that's really important. Wherever it's showing up in your chart, that is where you're getting your feedback, okay? And we need to take our time with the process of understanding what just happened. What was that all about? If we're actually to grow and learn, we need to take some time. And that's exactly what this week that we're in is all about. This is the time when we're moving between the opposition and the square, okay, which will come as we move into the end of the week. So we're going to be moving through, as the week progresses, we'll be moving through Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. And I'd like you to just take a journey with me now through these signs and how they're going to help you to integrate that message that the full moon and the Chiron Venus conjunction have brought to you. So today and tomorrow we've got the moon in Virgo. Virgo wants to make things better. Virgo is the healer. It's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury in this sign is really all about the hermetic principle. It's all about the medicine, okay? So Virgo can be sometimes in a little bit of a rush just to improve things. It can be very critical as well. So we might be feeling a little bit self-critical. Might be because of this Chiron experience, we might be thinking, oh God, here I go again on this same cycle that I've had in my relationship. Or, here is me again expressing myself in my relationship from my pain, from my trauma, or whatever it's been that's shown up. It can be a bit self-critical. And that critique is really because the first aspect of healing something is diagnosing. Okay, so you go to the doctor because you're unwell. Before he can make you better to give you the right medicine, he has to decide what's wrong. And so Virgo really is good at finding fault. It's really good at diagnosing. Okay, what needs cleaning? What needs tidying up? What needs organizing? That's all about the Virgo. So they can be, a little bit like seem like they're being a bit picky, but in actual fact, it's this real intention to improve. I face this a lot in the work that I do and in the community that I am part of and that we are all increasingly part of. It seems like everyone is a healer of some kind these days. Everyone has a different method of approaching whatever your pain or your wound is. I can make it go away. But I would really urge you to, just like the diagnosis is the first point of healing something, also validation. The doctor has to see, he has to give you an examination, he has to look at the wound, he has to examine it. He might take a biopsy and look at it really closely under a microscope. He might do tests, all these things. You can't just rush into the healing process. So validation. Okay, this first day after the full moon, it's really about, okay, let me validate the emotions that I've experienced before I want to make them go away and clean them up and tidy them and, you know, heal. We have to just acknowledge the broken part of ourselves. We have to look at those emotional stretch marks in the mirror and actually acknowledge that they're there. And if it makes us feel like we want to turn away or cover it up, or change it in some way, or go and have cosmetic surgery or something like that, then we really know that we have some work to do. That's where there's some healing to do. So Moon in Virgo may well just show you where that is going on. As we just pick apart and analyze, which is another Mercury Virgo thing, we're picking apart what's happened. We're making sense of it. Okay, as we go into Tuesday then, as she's moved deeper through Virgo, she's actually going to make this lovely supportive trine aspect to Saturn and Pluto over there in fellow Earth sign Capricorn. So this is really supportive. This is where she's going to tap us into that system and how it's breaking down. And okay, what's the important information that she's carrying from this experience that she's feeding into that new system that's being built, okay, brick by brick, piece by piece, as each cycle, as each lunar cycle goes through, with all the different connections, with all the different planets, it's feeding it back into that underlying foundation that we're laying. As we move into Wednesday, Venus then moves into her home sign, okay, one of the signs she rules, which is Libra. Libra is all about balance. Libra is all about fairness, okay? It's the weighing scales. And this is one of the things actually that, you know, the beauty industry taps into, is because of Venus ruling this sign of weighing things up, we tend to, as women, compare ourselves to other people. We compare ourselves to the images that we see. We say, well, hang on, where am I? Am I as good as that? Or am I as good as this woman? Or that woman that I just saw passed in the street or on Facebook or whatever? We're constantly comparing ourselves to others. So is there a better way that you could channel the Libra influence there, that quality that Venus has there, and say, well, hang on, am I being fair to myself in terms of my current value structure and how I currently view my woundedness, where that came from, and what my current approach is to that? Is there a way that I could perhaps create a little bit more balance and a little bit more fairness and look at things from a different way? All right, try sitting in different camps and see how that feels. Is this perhaps a different way of approaching it that might be a little bit more, yeah, equal? As we move into Wednesday, she's going to then move deeper into Libra. She will have passed an opposition to Venus and Chiron at the start of Libra. So that's really going to bring that stuff up again as she shines a light. And essentially this middle part of the third quarter of her cycle, this midsection of it is really important. So it's poignant essentially that she's bringing that stuff up to the surface again, that she's giving us that emotional connection to the Venus Chiron conjunction. So essentially it's another mirror, it's another opportunity as the moon's just going to reflect things to us. And we're really in the process deeply now of making sense of what happens and integrating the lessons, taking on board that feedback that we've got from the universe and saying, okay, what am I going to do with this now? How do I change my identity and my structure now because of what's shown up? Okay, so she's actually going to square the Saturn-Pluto conjunction when she's deeper into Libra. So this is kind of like an internal frustration. It can be this, I know I've got to do something, but my goodness, it's so hard. I don't know what to do for the best. I don't know if I can do this even. It can be a real sense of just kind of knowing that you can't sit on the fence, knowing that it's down to you to make this decision and weigh things up. But it's difficult because there's this internal kind of friction to these very, very potent planets over there in Capricorn, who doesn't really want things to change. Capricorn wants everything to stay like it is and last for a long time. And Libra can be a little bit kind of, can find it difficult to sort of make a decision. So we could feel that sense of frustration, I think, as we go through Thursday and we have that internal struggle. Friday and Saturday, there's quite a lot happening. Moon will have then moved into Scorpio, and Scorpio, wow, the moon in Scorpio, this is really asking us to go very, very deep. Deep into the dark places to really face the shadows. Okay, what is the real truth in all its vulnerability, in all its ickiness, in all of the stuff that we really might prefer not to have to look at? We're going into our shadow self. We're going into dark areas and experiences that we've had in our lives. And that's feeding into this kind of taking stock and integrating process that we're going through with this phase of the moon. She's actually, though, it's going to be very supportive because there will be sextiles. So sextile aspect is a supportive aspect. It's half of a trine, so it's kind of not as easy as a trine. It's kind of, we have to put a little bit of effort in, but that effort is rewarded. So the sextiles to the planets over in Capricorn are telling us, hey, look, if we can be really honest with ourselves and really face the shadow stuff, then that's going to support in a really helpful way that structure that we're building up over there in Capricorn as well. So it's about being courageous, which, you know, Venus in Aries needs to be. We have to be courageous to get through childbirth. But it's about being courageous to really go deep within and to be okay with feeling vulnerable and to be okay with changing the system, the value system that we're operating from. And that might be, I'm going to show up without makeup today. It might be, I'm going to stop dyeing my hair. It might be, I'm going to change the story around my woundedness and what my wounds make me. So it's really, really a deep, deep dive, but very, very supportive aspects that are being made there. And interestingly, over in Pisces, Mercury is in shadow now, as you may remember from last week. Sorry, so I hope you can hear me. It's a rainstorm outside now. Maybe because I'm talking about Pisces. Mercury in shadow in Pisces at this point. Mercury by Friday is going to move up to the 12th degree of Pisces. So this is the degree that Mercury will station retrograde at. So as we move closer into the end of this week, Mercury is getting slower and slower and slower in the chart. So we're feeling a lot more of the emphasis of Mercury. And this 12th degree is going to be a very potent degree, Mercury's going to hang out there for like almost a week. So when a planet stations to either go retrograde or direct after the retrograde, then it's really, really slow. So it's going to hang around on that degree for a little while. So you're really going to get a dose of Mercury. Have a look in your chart if you're familiar with it, and just notice, you know, the next few days. It's basically Mercury will arrive at the 12th degree on Friday, and it's going to be there till I think like Wednesday of the following week. So that it's going to get a really big dose, and then we'll turn retrograde. So you're going to start feeling very much as we progress through the week a deeper kind of Mercury retrograde vibe. However that plays out for you could be good. It's very, very helpful for a lot of people. It could support you to have to redo something, and may not like to do that, but that could yield something really, really positive for you in having to do that. So again, it's not being too judgmental about these aspects and connections and archetypes, essentially. But there can be the confusion, there can be the fogginess, there can be not quite seeing things as they are. So bear that in mind as well. As we move through Saturday, as we move into Saturday evening, the moon has now moved on to the 26th degree of Scorpio. So this is the completion of that journey, the 7-day journey, which represents the 3rd quarter of the moon cycle. And so she's moved into the last quarter square. If you see there, she's making a 90-degree angle to the sun. So the sun will be at 26 degrees of Aquarius and the moon at 20 degrees of Scorpio. And these are fixed signs, so they're squaring each other. So this is where we have a crisis point, a test point. And this is saying, you know, okay, we're moving towards a new moon now. You've had this full moon message, you've had your feedback, and you've gone through this process of picking it apart, pulling out the wisdom. And this is the point where you decide, am I going to take stuff with me, or does it stay here? Do I need to release it and get rid of it? Because I need to create some space for the new moon that's coming. And that's what we'll be doing throughout next week, that 4th quarter of the lunar cycle. That's when we're releasing. That's when we're clearing out. That's when we're really making room for the new stuff to move into. So this is the crisis point where we make the decision, what stays and what goes. Set on making the changes that going through this process has taught us we perhaps need to do, or we'd like to do. Then we may get a test at this time. Something may come up. Now, on that day, also, we've got Mars just completing the journey through Sagittarius. Okay, so I think that's actually Sunday, but close enough, yeah. Saturday. Yeah, Saturday will be changing. Mars will be just finishing the journey through Sagittarius. Now, that's a very powerful degree in any sign, the very last degree, the first degree and the last degree, very, very powerful degrees. And Mars here can be a bit of a warrior for its beliefs. So we can get into disagreements and arguments with people around very core fundamental beliefs that they may have. So this might not be the day to sort of meet up with someone and discuss, how you see things very differently in the world, because it's probably not going to be very harmonious conversation. People's beliefs are a part of their identity. What we align with is very much part of that. You just need to look at the Brexit situation in the UK that we've been going through. And our identity, do we identify as a European? Do we identify as an English person? These kinds of things, and the beliefs that's really brought up to the surface has caused an awful lot of division and separation. And that's what Mars can bring about. So watch out for that. Watch out for self-righteous behavior, essentially, in yourself and in others. because we can really push that stuff down other people's throats with Mars at the end of Sagittarius. So watch out for that as well. And then maybe as we're approaching that last quarter square, perhaps that will be part of the crisis, having to deal with having very potent and powerful beliefs that also need addressing as well. On Sunday then, it's a look to the future. That quarter square test has passed and the moon has moved out of this darker realm of Scorpio and into Sagittarius. So things immediately get a lift. Moon in Sagittarius is very optimistic, very hopeful, has its eyes set on more beautiful horizon, essentially. So things will immediately get an emotional lift. And like I say, we're then in the territory of our belief systems as we're going through the process, starting the process of what needs to be released, what needs to be let go of as we approach the new moon. So, and the last thing that I wanted to leave you with is on Sunday evening, the moon, as she's in Sagittarius, will create a lovely harmonious trine aspect right back to Venus. So again, we're in there. This journey that she's been on, she's very receptive as the moon. She's collecting everything, all the work that we're doing with her, she's collecting that up. And they will have this lovely conversation on Sunday evening. And how that conversation, it's an ease, okay, that the moon and Venus will just be able to communicate with each other really easily at that time. So the work that we've done and how we've shown up this week will be part of that conversation that they're having. So this is how astrology is empowering. This is why I love it so much, because we play our part in that process and it takes our self-work like way up. So I hope that's been helpful for you, slightly different than my normal format, but I really wanted to take some time discussing this really important stuff. Give me a like or a share. Please leave a comment. I love to hear what you make of it all. I would love to know if it's helpful in the process that you're going through, or even if you have any suggestions or requests of things that you would like me to cover. I would really love to hear from you. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to have more videos, not just the weekly forecast. As we move forward, I'll be doing other bits and bobs as well. So if you subscribe to the channel, you'll make sure that you don't miss those, and that supports me too. So thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful week. I hope it's really helpful, and I'll see you next time.